Russell retired at 57 with exactly $1 million saved. He thought he had it all figured out. His financial advisor smiled warmly and called it a safe plan. Withdraw 4% each year, adjust for inflation, and never worry again. That meant $40,000 in the very first year. Enough to travel, play golf, and spoil the grandchildren a little. The math looked completely bulletproof on a single printed page. Russell felt calm about money for the first time in decades. He framed that page and hung it in his home office. Then the calendar turned to the year 2000. The stock market suddenly had very different plans for him. By the age of 78, that safe plan was nearly empty. Same $1 million, same trusted 4% rule, yet a completely different and frightening ending waited for him. Here is the part nobody ever bothered to warn him about. His portfolio actually earned a perfectly solid average return over time. The long-term average was genuinely fine on paper. The timing of those returns, however, was absolutely fatal. Most people never learn that difference until it is far too late. This is the quiet math behind a retirement running dry. Let me be very clear about what happened to Russell here. He did not overspend or make some reckless gamble. He did not chase a hot stock or fall for a scam. He followed the single most famous rule in all of retirement. The 4% rule has guided millions of Americans for 30 years. It promised that your money would comfortably last 3 full decades. For Russell, it quietly failed him by age 78 instead. And Russell is not some rare or unlucky exception at all. A recent Morningstar study found the 4% rule now succeeds only about half the time. Read that number again slowly and let it truly sink in. A coin flip is now deciding whether your savings outlive you. That is not a plan, that is a gamble with your future. Most people believe their retirement plan is far safer than it really is. They confuse a big starting balance with a lasting income. Those are two completely different things in the real world. The gap between them is where retirements quietly go to die. You could do everything right and still run out of money. That is the uncomfortable truth hiding in plain sight. Saving diligently is only half of the battle. Spending that money safely is the harder half nobody teaches. Schools teach nothing about turning savings into lasting income, so millions of careful savers walk into the same trap. They arrive at retirement with a number and no real plan. Before you assume your own plan is safe, hear this out. Here is exactly what the data shows about running out of money. Meet the 2 most dangerous words in all of retirement planning. Sequence of returns. It sounds boring, technical, and easy to ignore completely. It is also the single reason Russell nearly went broke. Let us keep this fair and look at the real numbers. Picture 2 retirees who are completely identical in every way. Both start with exactly $1 million on day 1. Both use the same 4% withdrawal rule every single year. Both even earn the exact same average return over 30 years. Logic says they should end up in the exact same place, but they do not end up anywhere close to each other. One retiree dies with almost $2 million left over. The other retiree runs completely out of money in their late 70s. The only difference between them is the order the returns arrived. That is the entire secret hiding inside the phrase sequence risk. Think about how strange and unfair that really sounds. Same money in, same average out, wildly different endings. When the market falls hard in your first few years, everything changes. You are selling shares at low prices just to pay your bills. Those sold shares are gone forever and can never recover later. Even a brilliant market rebound cannot bring them back to life. It is like bailing water from a boat during a storm. The water you throw out never returns to lift you. Russell retired directly into the market crash of the year 2000. His fragile early years landed on the worst possible timing. Same rule, same million, and a completely broken result. That is not bad luck. That is a design flaw in the plan. Let me show you exactly how the numbers played out for Russell. He retired at 57 in the year 2000 with $1 million. He took $40,000 that first year, just like the rule allowed. Every year after, he raised that amount by 3% for inflation. His portfolio followed the real returns of the market from that era. The dot-com crash hit hard in his first 3 years. Stocks fell sharply while he kept pulling out his paychecks. His $1 million balance dropped while his withdrawals kept climbing higher. He was selling more shares at lower and lower prices. Each withdrawal in those down years did permanent damage. He locked in losses that the market later erased for others. When stocks finally recovered, he owned far fewer shares, so the rebound helped him far less than it should have. By the time he reached 77, he had barely 2 years of money left. 20 years of savings had almost completely vanished. He was not careless, he was simply following the rule. The rule just never accounted for his terrible timing. Now watch what happens when we simply reverse those exact returns. Same numbers, same withdrawals, just arriving in the opposite order. In that version, the good years come first and cushion everything. Russell would have almost $1.8 million at 77. Let that contrast burn into your memory for a moment. One path ends in near poverty and constant fear. The other ends in comfort with money to spare and even leave behind. The dollars withdrawn were identical, and the average return was identical too. Only the timing changed, and timing decided everything for Russell. This is why researchers call the first 10 years the fragile decade. Studies show those first 10 years explain about 80% of your final outcome. 80% of your entire retirement rides on one narrow window. It is the 5 years before you retire and the 5 years after. Get that decade wrong, and no later boom can fully save you. Get that decade right, and your money can last a very long time. Most people spend 0 minutes protecting that exact window. They celebrate their big balance and assume the danger has passed. In reality, the most dangerous years are just beginning for them. Russell learned that lesson the hardest way a person possibly can. His safe plan was built for an average that never actually arrived on time. Now let me show you the hidden forces that broke it. There are several forces working quietly against your retirement at once. We will walk through each one so you can spot it early. Understand these, and you will see your own plan far more clearly. None of these forces are dramatic or loud on their own. They work slowly, quietly, and mostly out of sight. That is exactly what makes them so dangerous over time. By the time you feel them, the damage is done. So let us pull each one into the light right now. The first force is the rule that simply felt safe. The 4% rule was created back in 1994 by an advisor named William Bengen. He studied decades of market history to find a safe withdrawal number. His finding was that 4%, adjusted for inflation, survived 30 years. It was smart, careful, and genuinely useful for its time. Bengen deserves real credit for the research he did, but here is what most people conveniently forget about it. That rule was based on the specific returns of the past century. It assumed a certain mix of stocks and bonds working together. It also assumed you retired in a fairly average market environment. Retire into a bad decade, and the entire foundation cracks beneath you. The rule was a guideline, never an ironclad guarantee of safety. Even Bengen himself later revised and adjusted his famous number. Yet millions of people treat it like a physical law of nature. They plug in 4% and stop thinking entirely. The world that created it looked nothing like the world today. Bond yields were higher, and stocks were often cheaper. Both of those tailwinds have faded in recent years. That means the old cushion is thinner than most people assume. Run the numbers for yourself and the cracks appear quickly. A rule with a 50% failure rate is not a safety net at all. It is a comforting story we tell ourselves about money. And comforting stories are exactly what sink careful savers. The second force is that dangerous, fragile decade we mentioned. The 5 years before and after retirement carry enormous hidden weight. During your working years, a market crash is almost a gift to you. You keep buying shares cheaply and your paycheck refills the account. Every downturn becomes a discount sale on your future wealth. But the day you retire, that entire dynamic flips against you completely. Now you are only selling shares, never buying any more of them. A crash in this window forces you to sell low again and again. Every dollar you pull during a downturn is a dollar that never recovers. Compounding, which once worked beautifully for you, now works in reverse. The same math that built your wealth now quietly destroys it. This is why two identical retirees can end up worlds apart. One simply retired into calm markets and the other into chaos. Neither of them did anything different or wrong at all. You do not get to choose which market greets your retirement day. Think of two neighbors who both retire with $1 million. One retires in a calm year and sails smoothly for decades. The other retires just before a brutal 3-year crash. 10 years later, their balances are not even close. The unlucky neighbor may already be watching his money disappear. Neither worked harder or saved smarter than the other. The only difference was the year printed on the calendar. That is exactly why the fragile decade demands real protection. Ignore it and you are gambling your entire future on luck. The third force is the silent tax that nobody ever votes on. That silent tax is called inflation, and it never sleeps. Inflation quietly shrinks the value of every dollar you own each year. It feels invisible day to day, but it compounds relentlessly. At just 3% inflation, your dollar loses half its value in about 24 years. Picture needing $100,000 a year to live comfortably today. In 30 years, you might need over $240,000 instead. That is the same lifestyle, simply priced at future dollars. Nothing improved, yet the cost more than doubled on you. Russell felt this squeeze without even fully understanding it. His $40,000 bought less and less every passing year. Groceries, healthcare, and heating all crept steadily higher, so he withdrew more just to stand in the exact same place. Higher withdrawals during weak markets drained his account even faster. Inflation and bad timing formed a brutal partnership against him. Most people plan using today's prices, and tomorrow's shocks blindside them. Healthcare costs in particular tend to rise faster than everything else. And healthcare is exactly what retirees need more of over time. So the one expense that grows fastest hits you hardest. A dollar hidden under a mattress simply melts away silently. Even safe bonds can struggle to outrun rising prices. Run the numbers on inflation and the danger becomes crystal clear. A plan that ignores inflation is already quietly failing. The fourth force is the trap of simply living longer than expected. We all hope for a long and healthy life ahead. But a longer life means your money must stretch much further. A plan built for 30 years can shatter across 40 years. Modern retirees are living well into their late 80s and 90s. Morningstar's research shows the safe withdrawal rate drops as retirement lengthens. For a 30-year retirement, the safe rate sits near 3.9%. Stretch it to 35 years and that safe rate falls to 3.5%. Push it to a full 40 years and it drops near 3.2%. Every extra year of life quietly lowers how much you can safely spend. That is the strange arithmetic of a long and lucky life. Russell planned for a comfortable 30 years of retirement. He never seriously considered making it all the way to 90. Longevity is a blessing that your money must be ready for. Most people underestimate their own lifespan by a wide margin. That single miscalculation can leave you broke in your final years. The years when you can least afford to start over. A married couple faces an even longer horizon together. At least one spouse often lives well past 90. So the money must survive 2 lifetimes, not just one. Planning for the average lifespan quietly ignores that risk. Half of all people live longer than the average by definition. You could easily be one of them, so plan for it. The fifth force is Morningstar's very quiet downgrade of the famous rule. For years, 4% was treated as the gold standard number, but the experts have steadily walked that number backward. Morningstar's 2026 research now puts the safe starting rate at 3.9%. Just a year earlier, their number was only 3.7%. These figures assume a 90% chance of money lasting 30 years. Notice they no longer even promise 100% success. They aim for 90% and quietly accept a 10% failure chance. That difference between 4% and 3.9% sounds tiny. On a $1 million portfolio, it is $1,000 fewer dollars yearly. But the real message is much bigger than that small number. The safe rule has been shrinking, not growing, over recent years. The old 4% promise no longer holds the way it once did. Higher prices and lower expected returns have squeezed the number. Anyone still blindly using 4% is using an outdated map. And an outdated map can lead you straight off a cliff. Notice also the quiet shift from certainty to probability. The old rule felt like a guarantee to most people. The new research openly admits a real chance of failure. That honesty is useful, but it demands your attention. A 90% success rate still means 1 in 10 fail. Would you board a plane with those exact odds? Your retirement deserves far more caution than a coin flip. The sixth force is the withdrawal plan that refuses to ever bend. The classic rule tells you to withdraw the same amount no matter what. You raise it for inflation, but you never cut it during crashes. That rigid approach is exactly what breaks fragile portfolios. Imagine pulling full withdrawals while your account drops 30%. You are pouring water from a bucket with a growing hole. The faster it drains, the harder it is to refill. Russell never adjusted his spending when his portfolio was bleeding. He kept taking his inflation-raised paycheck straight through the downturn. That single stubborn habit accelerated his account toward zero. A small cut in those early years could have saved him. A plan that cannot bend in a storm will eventually break. Flexibility is not weakness in retirement, it is genuine survival. The retirees who trim early almost always outlast the rigid ones. The most dangerous words are, the plan says take this amount. Sometimes the smartest move is to simply take a little less. Skipping one big trip in a crash year helps enormously. Delaying a new car for 12 months protects the core. These are small sacrifices compared to running out entirely. The rigid retiree spends the same into a shrinking account. The flexible retiree spends less and lets the account heal. One approach ends in fear, the other ends in freedom. Bending early is how you avoid breaking later. The seventh force is confusing a big balance with real safety. A large number on your statement feels deeply reassuring to see. But that number is not the same as guaranteed lasting income. Two people with $1 million can have wildly different futures. It depends entirely on timing, withdrawals, inflation, and flexibility. Russell had a full million and still nearly went broke completely. The balance was never his real problem at any point. His problem was a rigid plan meeting terrible timing. Here is what nobody tells you about that big round number. Wealth is not what you have. It is what you can safely keep spending. $1 million spent at the wrong time can vanish shockingly fast. The statement balance is a snapshot, not a promise. Focus on your income plan, not just your account balance. Ask how long the money lasts, not just how big it looks. That one shift in thinking changes every decision you make. A pension holder with less saved can feel far safer. Their income arrives every month regardless of the market. That steady stream is worth more than a scary balance, so think in terms of reliable monthly income first. Build guaranteed income to cover your essential bills. Then let your investments handle the extras on top. The eighth force is what actually protects a retirement from running dry. The good news is that Russell's ending was completely avoidable. Small, smart adjustments could have saved his entire plan. None of them required luck or a crystal ball. First, keep a cash cushion of 1 to 2 years of expenses. In a crash, you spend that cash instead of selling shares low. This lets your investments recover before you touch them again. It breaks the deadly cycle of selling into a falling market. Think of that cash as a shock absorber for crashes. When stocks fall, you simply live off the cushion. When stocks recover, you refill the cushion again. That single habit would have saved Russell's entire plan. It is simple, cheap, and yet almost nobody does it. Second, use flexible spending rules that adjust to the market. Morningstar found flexible retirees can safely withdraw up to 5.7%. That is far more than the rigid 3.9% limit. In good years, you spend a bit more freely. In bad years, you trim spending and protect your nest egg. Small trims early prevent giant regrets later on. Third, watch your equity mix during the fragile decade carefully. Too aggressive, and a crash devastates you at the worst moment. Too cautious, and inflation slowly erodes your buying power instead. Fourth, revisit your withdrawal rate as your retirement lengthens over time. These moves are not complicated or expensive to make. They simply require a plan that respects timing and stays flexible. There is one more quiet lever most people forget. Delaying Social Security even a few years boosts your checks. A larger guaranteed check protects you against a long life. It is one of the few truly free upgrades available. Combine these tools and your plan grows far more durable. No single move is magic, but together they compound. That is the difference between running dry and thriving comfortably. That is the plan Russell wishes someone had shown him. Now here is the counterintuitive truth almost nobody talks about openly. We are trained to obsess over one single number our whole lives. How much money do I have saved up right now? We chase a bigger balance as if it solves everything. We measure our whole retirement by that one figure. But the size of your nest egg is only half of the story. The other half is the timing of the returns you receive. And timing is something you cannot control or predict at all. You cannot schedule the next crash around your retirement party. Two retirees with the same million and same returns can end up worlds apart. One dies wealthy and the other dies broke purely by timing. So the real goal is not simply a bigger pile of money. The real goal is a plan that survives bad timing gracefully. Here is the line worth remembering above all others. It is not how much your money earns, it is when it earns it. That single idea alone would have completely changed Russell's entire retirement. He built his plan for the average and got destroyed by the order. The average was a comforting lie told by a single sheet of paper. Real markets do not deliver smooth averages year after year. They deliver booms and crashes in a random, brutal sequence. A plan that ignores that sequence is quietly waiting to fail. Most people never see this until their account is already draining. By then, the best options are already gone forever. Think about how backwards our whole focus really is. We spend decades chasing a bigger and bigger number, then we hand that number to a rigid rule and hope. Hope is not a strategy when your income is at stake. The wealthy do not simply own more, they plan better. They protect against the exact timing they cannot predict. That is the quiet edge most people never learn about. You now see it clearly, and that changes everything for you. Protect the timing, and the average will take care of itself. Build the plan for the worst decade, not the perfect one. This is not about fear or hoarding every dollar. It is about buying yourself real peace of mind. A flexible plan lets you enjoy the good years fully, because you know the bad years will not destroy you. That confidence is the true reward of smart planning. Timing is the risk, and flexibility is your answer. So let us bring this all the way home for you now. Russell's story is not meant to frighten you into panic. It is meant to hand you the map he never actually had. His plan was not reckless, it was simply incomplete. It respected the average, but ignored the timing completely. It celebrated the balance, but forgot about flexibility. You do not have to repeat that very same mistake. Build a cash cushion for the fragile decade ahead of you. Stay flexible with your spending when markets turn against you. Plan for a long life and shrinking safe withdrawal rates. And stop treating 4% like an unbreakable law of nature. A retirement plan is not a single number on a page. It is a living strategy that must bend without breaking. Check your plan against a bad decade, not an average one. Ask yourself one simple question about your own money today. Could my plan survive retiring right before a crash? If the answer is no, you have real work to do. But that work is far easier before the storm arrives. A few smart changes now can save decades later. You have the time and the knowledge to fix this. If this helped you see your own plan more clearly today, consider subscribing to Coach Nora Money and hitting the notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's sales pitch. Because a safe plan is not the one that looks best on paper. It is the one that survives the timing you cannot control.